Great. Well, it looks like attendees have stopped coming in now. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start. So, um, welcome to our webinar. As I say, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Um, you are joined by myself, Lee Connors, Technical Director at Catalyst BI, as well as Noel. Noel, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Watson, pre-sales consultant at Catalyst. But my background is about 25 years or so in various forms of IT, from ERP implementation through to jack of all trades. And for about 20 years now, I've been using all of the Qlik platform. So looking forward to demonstrating this today.
Yeah, what Noel doesn't know about Qlik is probably not worth knowing. So if you've got a question, then feel free to 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 ask Noel that one. Okay, so what are we going to do agenda-wise? We're going to go basically spend a couple of minutes just explaining what generative actually is. So we'll do a quick 101 on that one, and some key concepts really. And then we'll jump into Qlik Answers, what is Answers within Answers demo. And then we've got a question and answer session as well, right at the end. If there are any questions during the session, we've got the question and answers tab open. So please you just use your panel in Zoom and ask any questions as you go, and we'll answer them right at the end. This is a live demo. This isn't pre-recorded, so as we usually do them. So we'll answer them right at the end because there's only me and Noel on the call from Catalyst. So yeah, let's just jump into it. Um, First off, for people who are not familiar with Catalyst and Catalyst BI, one of our strap lines is challenge organizations to unlock insights, drive performance by creating value and bringing people and data together. The main element of that is that we strive to bring data and your organization and people within that organization together, whether it be unstructured or structured data, using a multitude of different technologies. We do that by using essentially three different areas. So data management, analytics, and science. Management is about integration, building warehouses, bringing data in, etc. Data analytics, as I'm sure a majority of you on the call know, is all about understanding where your data is, dashboarding, etc. And then finally science, where we use a plethora of different technology stacks right across them, but right across each of these areas. But data science is where we're going to be focused at today, and we're going to be talking mainly Qlik today. But you can see that we also have a number of different vendors in there, such as Celigo, Qlik, Microsoft, Data Robot, Snowflake, on both sides of the fence. So let's focus a little bit on Qlik now, and 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 really understand what the SaaS platform is. So I'm sure some of you are already in the Qlik SaaS platform, but it's about essentially moving data, storing it, trusting it, analyzing it, and then acting on it, essentially doing something right at the top there. Today, we're going to be focusing on mainly the AI and the ML. A lot of you are familiar with the analytics, or maybe the QCDI elements of moving and transforming data within the Qlik SaaS platform. But today, we're going to be focusing on that AI side. And then how do you make that actionable? So how do you make that actionable and get an outcome, in essence, from that data ingestion in your organization? But before we do that, there's a lot of hype about generative. It's worth just noting that traditional AI is still around. It's still within the Qlik platform with AutoML, and it's still within Catalyst grasp to deliver this using Data Robot, or even just actually in Python and R and Microsoft, for example. So, but both are still absolutely important, and both still have huge potential. According to Boston Consultancy Group, generative alone, which is what we're focused on today, is going to achieve 30% share of overall AI market by the end of next year, by 2025. So there's still 70% out there where traditional picks that up. But why all the hype? Well, we see this as the fastest tech in history. If we, I've got a picture of Sam Altman there for people who don't know him. He was one of the co-founders of Airbnb, Dropbox, Stripe, Reddit, and OpenAI. So he knows his stuff, and really, this is an inflection point, and the impact of generative AI should have a positive impact on society. At least what his thoughts are going to be. But really, I'm interested in how fast that tech is and how impactful that tech has been. So if we just think about how quick we've got to 100 million users on the different technologies that I'm sure we're all familiar with. So if we start at mobile phones, to get to 100 million users, it took us 192 months. So significant. The internet, which I thought just exploded back in when I was a wee nipper, was 84 months. Facebook, which I remember being launched, was 54 months to get to 100 million users. But ChatGPT, this is where we really saw an explosion, and this is where the hype came for. It took 2 months to get to 100 million users in ChatGPT. So let's just consider that for a second. 100 million users in 2 months. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I mean, that is incredible, Lee. That's phenomenal. 16 years, everybody's got a mobile phone in their pocket, but 16 years to
16
get just
years.
100 million users, which is a big number, but not that many compared to the number of people in the globe. But 2 months for ChatGPT. So I don't know if I was exactly in the froth on the crashing wave of ChatGPT embracement, but I was certainly there towards the front. And when I saw it for the first time, I was absolutely blown away by what it was capable of, and it's moved on, many steps since then. So many things you can do with that, but not just that as well. It's not just ChatGPT these days. Obviously, there are many other technologies embedding Gen AI. So, example, Adobe's Photoshop. You can use natural language to create images. Or even tools that we're more familiar with, like Qlik data integration. It's got tools built in there for natural language, SQL generation, or even, down at daily level, you've got Copilot built into Edge browser. So, you can have Google open for the where of things and then Copilot open for the how of things. It really has changed the world, and it's just getting more and more prevalent.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, but actually, what does that mean for business? So, if we think about more traditional AI that we've become used to, machine learning, for example, we've it's based over structured data. So we've been able to use historical transaction sets to create predictions for the future. But what if your data is unstructured? And actually, 80% of the world's data is unstructured. If you're thinking about images, emails, documents, etc., how do we leverage that information and turn that into something that our business can use, whether it's an accelerating fast start in a process or being that know-it-all in the business that's got 20 years of experience. How do we recreate that and get those use cases available? So the difference between ChatGPT, for example, or even Copilot, is that those tools are based over the entirety of human knowledge, aka the internet. So if you ask it a question, it's going to go out and find the best response from everything that's ever been talked about. But that might be different to how your business will treat that process. What if you've got very bespoke processes that you need to be followed in very specific ways, or information that you want to be able to interrogate, but you don't want it to be seen by the likes of ChatGPT to be out there on the internet for everybody else to benefit from, and therefore keep your commercial benefit. So, Lee, can you tell us how Gen AI in the workplace and different use cases could operate based over your own data?
Yeah, I think we saw over the last couple of years of delivering multiple projects within multiple vendors. We've seen kind of three main focus points. So knowledge management, where you've got kind of that historic data sets that you just want to summarize up and provide information back to individual users. So, whether it be internal HR policies, that kind of thing, or whether it be technical documentation, content generation, absolutely, that first draft kind of marketing emails or visual assets, etc., right the way through to agents. So I think we're all familiar with chatbots, etc., and whether they be internal or external, to reduce the load on quite to reduce the load and reduce costs in essence on those by providing chatbots to your end customers. So there is a plethora there. I think where we've seen the majority of the use cases is very much in that knowledge management. So taking that plethora of different documents and where you've got it documented somewhere and finding that information really quickly. But I think the question really here, from the audience on the call really is, you might be sat there thinking, well, I know about Generative, I want to get involved with it. How and where do I get involved with it? Well, I think you need to ask the question of, where is your organization spending a lot of time? Are you doing a lot of reading, writing, searching, analyzing via all these documents? And those are the key elements that you really need to focus generative AI at, in essence, in order to deliver value back to your business, because everything should be value based. And there's a link at the back end of this presentation to set up a quick call. If you're still sat there thinking, how am I going to use generative AI, then reach out, have a chat with us. We're here to help.
So I imagine it's complicated, Lee. Would that be fair to say?
It is, Noel. So let's just start by using a generic RAG architecture. So RAG is retrieval augmented generation, very technical, lots of words, lots of acronyms, as IT usually normally is. But in essence, this generic architecture, I won't go through all of these, but in essence, the takeaway in this one is there's lots of different elements on here. So we have to acquire the documents on the left, we have to parse the text out, we have to chunk the text, we store it in what they call a vector database. I know I'm probably losing people here. We then choose an LLM, so something like Gemini, you've probably heard of, a GPT, I'm sure, Claude, of the like. So you choose an LLM, and that's where the heart of the decision making, or the logic or the intelligence of generative sits. But then you have to configure that LLM and integrate it using APIs. That you then have to do what they call prompt engineering and then prompt user logic engineering, where you have to then change the chunking and change the similarity searching and all that kind of good stuff. And then after you've done all of that, so you've done all that techie stuff, then you need a way for the users to interact with it. So you have to then create a web page or a front end, and that takes a lot of people, right? So that takes data scientists, it takes infrastructure people to set up vector databases, to set up web pages. You've got developers to do integration and integration work, etc. And before you even get to those end users. So, this can take weeks. And probably the quickest I've done this is probably a couple of weeks, I would probably say, from end to end, using a couple of different technology stacks in order to get a really, really good working environment.
Yeah, so I'm a tech guy. I've been a tech guy for a long time, but I think that looks complex. What if I told you that I could do the same in Qlik in a few minutes rather than a couple of weeks?
I'd probably say, show me, please, no, because that would take a lot of pain out of my.
Okay, that's what we're here for, isn't it? So actually, what Qlik have done, and this is in line with how Qlik are approaching a lot of new elements of their platform, is to kind of take some of the complexity away from you and make some decisions around how some of the underlying logic and platform should be configured to make sure that you can get to the value of the product, much more quickly. So instead of having to engage large teams of tech people like we see in the generic architecture, Qlik have made it so it's all business facing. So basically you just need one or two people. So in this scenario, we need somebody who's going to get hold of the documents and bring them together, make sure that they cover the topic that's at hand. And then within a few clicks, we're going through that process of creating a knowledge base. The assistant then is the technology that allows you to interrogate the knowledge base. And then once that's built, you hand that over to your end user. So literally within, a few minutes, or a bit longer if you've got to spend some time building large data sets, but, not necessarily tech work, you're off and running. So yeah, I'm going to show you that right now.
Okay.
So before we jump in there, just to recap what Qlik Answers is? So it's built into Qlik Cloud. So it's fully self-service. You log on, you build it yourself, as one user or a team of users. But no coding involved, no technical experience required. You can build this over large document libraries. Basically, you get 50,000 pages in your base library. So it's quite a lot of documentation, and we're not talking white space in documents. And of course, you're putting your data there into the cloud ready to be interrogated. So you need to know it's secure, and obviously Qlik Cloud has passed all those SOC certifications, so we know that the Qlik Cloud is secure anyway. So I'm going to show you answers in the context of just a little scenario here. So we've got a junior member of a tax consultancy firm that frequently get questions that are a little bit above their knowledge, and how do we help accelerate that person and get them able to contribute, still at that early learning phase. We're going to do that by showing how we can use Qlik Answers to connect to an external data source, how simple it is for us to be able to create a knowledge base from that data source, from all those documents that exist in the library. Then we build the assistant over the knowledge base, which again, very quick function to be able to achieve. We're at that point, we're actually right into asking questions and validating it, proving that it's correct. But we know that you shouldn't trust everything you hear from Gen AI. So how do we make sure that it's giving us valuable, correct response? So we'll talk a little bit about that. So here we go. So in my scenario, I'm a junior tax consultant. We have all the information stored around the tax rules around self-assessment. We store all of our documents in SharePoint. It's a little bit chaotic, and things have moved on. We've got numerous subfolders that we don't really know what's in there, and we've got all kinds of different document formats. So when I've got a question that I need to ask, and maybe somebody's asking me about capital gains, I can come and do a search in SharePoint, ask about capital gains, and it comes back and says, actually, you've still got 15 documents that I need to read to be able to get down to the information that you're looking for. Well, that's going to take me a long time. It's important work, somebody needs to do it, but it's going to take time, isn't it? So that's where Answers can really change the game here. So I'm not starting with anything pre-prepared. This is all from the ground up, and I'm going to show you how we can build a capability to query all that stuff. So in Qlik Cloud here, let's go to create. So the first thing I need is a knowledge base. I'm going to create this HMRC self-assessment knowledge base. If we go, so we create that. So that's the kind of the framework that we put all of our documents into. So I've got a choice here. I can just upload a whole load of stuff directly from my PC or from a network folder. If it already exists in Qlik Cloud, I've got the option to select those as well. But actually, my stuff's already in SharePoint, and I want it to stay there. So I'm going to use this data connection one. And I've just a bit earlier, I've just created an Office 365 SharePoint connector into that data folder that I showed you earlier. Now I can choose which files go into that knowledge base directly. So I can use the file navigator to find out where those files are, and I know that they're in this self-assessment folder. But actually, I don't want to do that, because that means then that we're going to need to specify which files, and that will remain static. So what I want to do instead is create a dynamic rule that then means every time somebody adds a new document into that SharePoint folder, it goes into consideration for including in the knowledge base. We saw earlier, so I'll just choose the root folder here. So it's actually the self-assessment folder. And I saw we've got those kind of archive folders sat in there. So I don't want to go any deeper than that folder. I don't want to go down to 2, so I can exclude those archives, etc. But I could include if I wanted to. We can manage things like how many files to bring in if we want to ignore really massive files, for example. And we can choose which file types we want to bring in. So in this case, I'm just going to bring in PDFs and documents. And I can also create powerful regex type expressions. So I can, based on file name, I could choose whether to include or exclude specific files based on what's in their file name. In this case, I don't actually need that. I'm just going to click select here to include all the PDFs and documents in that folder. So how do we refresh that information? Well, we've got a choice to put that index onto a schedule. So we can say daily I need you to go away and check for new files in there and to rebuild my knowledge base based on that. And therefore, it's always up to date. So it may be that somebody goes in and edits any incorrect information or add new folders in, etc. Or in this case, I can just choose to do that manually. So that's now indexing. I'll see that update. So it's in progress. So depending on the volume of files we put in there, then this could take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes, but it is that kind of time scale. It's not that long at all. And once it's complete, we can then create the assistant. So I mentioned earlier, the assistant is how we interrogate the data. It's where we just ask questions. So I can create that assistant. And as soon as that information in the knowledge base finishes indexing, we're ready to go with the questions. So it really, really is that simple. I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes here. So one I just did a bit earlier, so we don't have to wait to watch it finish the indexing. I've got the knowledge base, it's been created, and I've got my assistant, which I'm sat in now. So just a little bit about the assistant. You can create conversation starters. So if you've got any FAQs, you can help get people started understanding what kind of questions they can ask. And it shows you those conversation starters down here. So if I full screen this for a minute and just ask it, what are my personal tax rates as an example, then it can go away and it can start to retrieve information about that. But obviously that's a little bit simplistic. It's probably just pulled that out of, well, it's actually pulled it out of 2 documents, as we can see here. So anytime it gives me a response, I can click on the view sources here and it will tell me exactly which document and which section of document it's pulled that out of. So if we've got any doubts about the validity of what it's showing, it's very easy for me to be able to go away and just download that document and be able to test it for myself. What if we want to ask it something a bit more nuanced, though, or maybe something with a bit more complexity to it? Well, we can do that. So I'm going to imagine a scenario that somebody wants to know about what capital gains tax they'd be liable for on the sale of a £200,000 rental property for which they paid £100,000. So I've kind of asked it that question. It's come back with some fairly generic information at this stage because I haven't really given it enough. The question has got multiple answers depending on my situation, whether I'm a high or low rate taxpayer, etc. So what we can do is we can just continue to hold a conversation with it. So it's not a case where I need to restate the question again as a more explicit form with more information in it. I can just continue as you would with a human being and just ask it, okay, well, I've got more information to share. What if I'm a high tax rate payer? And now it knows it's 28%, not 20% that I'm dealing with. But I've heard that potentially, there's some tax-free allowance on that. So I wanted to consider it, should any of that be tax-free? And it researched the information again and says, actually, yes, there is a £6,000 tax-free allowance. Then we kind of get back to the nuts and bolts of it. So actually, okay, now that we've established all the different things that might change the output, can you give me the answer? How much am I liable for? And it can then take the information that we've fed it through the conversation and say things like, yeah, okay, so 6,000 tax free, 28% on the balance between 100 and 200,000 less your tax free allowance, and therefore you're £26,320.
Well, I don't even have to get a calculator up. No.
I think that's amazing. That is really amazing. So what you can do as well is you can uprate it at the end if you think it's right. And what that can do is allow the admin to come back and be able to review questions that have been put through in there. Because if people are down rating questions, maybe it turns out that you've got some either conflicting or incorrect information in your documentation. So this is a way that you can go back and address that and clarify the details. So that really is, the full complexity of setting up a knowledge base.
Wow, that was quick. That's quick now. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just recap what we looked at there, as brief as it was. So we've been able to use SharePoint to connect to data, but do it in a way that's dynamic, so that as new files are added into that knowledge base, into that repository of documents, it's able to re-index and bring those into the knowledge base. I pointed my knowledge base at that one location. We can do it to multiple locations and just pick specific files out of there that are relevant to this use case. Create an assistant is just a simple one-click operation, but actually we can put multiple knowledge bases into a single assistant as well if that makes sense to do. And then, within a few clicks, we were asking some fairly nuanced questions about the ins and outs of tax liability when disposing of rental properties in the UK. So, stuff that is available, but it takes time and effort to research, and that's where the value is here, is it can bring you that stuff back in seconds. But also we saw that, if I don't quite trust the answer, how do I then go and check how it came up with that answer and be able to validate that response.
Great, thanks, Noel. It's probably worth as quick as that was, and we're not going to apologise for how quick this demo is and how quick the session is, because it is as simple as it looks. Because it is a switch on and start using today kind of operation for answers. In that trusted environment, you've got that explainability, so you can open up your source documents to get the evidence. So if that was evident, if that 80% liability would need to be evidence for the end user or customer, they could click on that document and send that across back to the end customer. I think the big takeaway though is that this isn't a generic chat GPT. I'm going to go on the internet and look at different tax rates for different countries. This is purely focused on your data set, on the data set that you are choosing as well, and can control. It can connect to anything, so SharePoint, Cloud, Dropbox, whatever, SFTP, and very much more. Qlik comes with a load of connectors, and more connectors are coming online pretty much weekly. But something that we haven't showed today is yes, that's great. The assistant automatically creates that portal, that website, that chat assistant for you. So it gives you that interface out of the box. But you can take that interface and put it into your website, put it into your intranet, put it into your portal, wherever you want it to be on the web. And you can do that very, very simply as well. So, and then finally, which is the big one. I know this is simply, let's put a schedule up and then let's refresh the data. That's actually quite complicated to do. We know how complicated that is, of how you automatically reindex and create that new content, and have that on a schedule and automated is fantastic. So, we are actually impressed with answers, as you hopefully can tell. So what next, really? If you please scan this QR code. This will book either 15 minutes in with myself or Noel, depending on who's available. But if you want to look at of how you can use generative AI, it could be Qlik Answers, it could be Data Robot, it could be Snowflake, it could be just directly in Python, it could be in Microsoft, for example. Then please do scan that, and we can have that conversation. If you want to know anything about Qlik SaaS, a little bit more about generative AI, or even just do a POC with Qlik Answers, then please just get in contact with us, either using the QR code and book us directly. This is free of charge. Both me and Noel work in the pre-sales department, so this is all free of charge. So please book us directly or email us as well. We have got our LinkedIn on the next screen, so please LinkedIn us, message us directly, email us directly. Yeah, if you've got any questions, then please put them in the chat. We've had a few so far that I've been able to answer. I'll just recap them, because I'm sure it's all on your. The questions would be similar. So one of the questions was, what's the LLM that's used? They're actually using Amazon's Claude. So thank you for my correction there, Noel. Thank you. Is there a limit of documents that you can use? Well, in theory, it's unlimited. It starts with 50,000 pages, but you can add more pages by uplifting the licensing cost on those. So essentially, they just become add-ons in essence. And then the last question that we had is the limit of how many questions you can ask. Again, that's similar. That you get at a default, you get 25,000 questions that you can answer a month. So that's quite a lot. But again, you can add more if you need to. And there's no cost on that one as well. I'll just answer the next one. Is there additional cost? No. What you see, what you pay for as part of your Qlik Answers, there's no additional token cost, there's no additional storage costs, there's no additional vector database or hosting costs. And this is where this is where we've seen historically, actually, it's a very good question. Historically, we'll deliver a generative, and there's still that variable cost of you still need to go out to and call an LLM, so or you'll still need to do that web element of creating the front end, and all of these take time, and time is cost, and testing and such. So it just takes time in order to get that through your organization and develop and deploy. And those are variable costs. So your hosting is monthly and variable. Your token cost going out to the LLM is variable. This is just a standard one cost. So yeah, really straightforward. I
Okay,
think that's
we've
all
reached
the
the half hour
questions
mark, Lee. So
we have.
hopefully
Yes.
bring it to a close there. But you've got our contact details there. We really do invite you to reach out if you've got further further information that you'd like to hear. So apart from that, I'll say goodbye and Lee.
Yeah, goodbye, and thank you for your time. And any questions, do reach out. Cheers now. Thank you.
Thank you.